Now 24 minutes after 8, and today is the 1st of December. Happy new month. But also being the 1st of December, the World AIDS Day is observed around the world to focus attention on HIV and AIDS epidemic. The first recognized cases of AIDS were reported in the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in June 5th, 1981. The illness, undefined at that point, was labeled pneumocystis or pneumonia. Today, it is reported that there are currently about 36.7 million people living with HIV infections, including 1.8 million diagnosed during 2016. Despite a drop in the AIDS-related death rates of almost 50% since 2005, the disease claimed 1 million lives in the last full calendar year. The fight against the virus continues, with 19.5 million people receiving antiretroviral medication in 2016, up more than 2 million on the previous year. This morning, I'd like us to have this conversation as we reflect and see the gains made and possibly what can be done. And I have a panel this morning, and I'll start with my immediate left, where I have Betty Adera, who is the Chief of Party, and that's in the prevalence program, our global community. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
We have Jane Wanjiro Mwangi, who is a peer counselor. Thank you for joining us. Eva Lichuma, Public Health Officer. And last but not least, we have Rose Mweni, who's also the founder of Generation Y. And we're going to be having that discussion as we continue. But first, let us look at some of the figures that we have currently so that we can begin that conversation from there. And, well, national HIV prevalence is standing at 5.9%. 97 young people are infected daily. Now, if you've noticed from the panel that we have this morning, it is mainly young people, and they are driving the agenda. So 4 to 5 infections for each hour. That is a huge figure. Looking at those figures again, prevalence among women stands at 6.3% compared with 5.5% among women. Again, another thing that we'd like to look at and see why that is the case. 51% of new HIV infections occur among young people. That is above half, 51% of new HIV infections occurring amongst young people. 85% of HIV-positive married or cohabiting couples are unaware of their partner's status. Again, something else we'd like to look at, and that is status and possibly what one needs to do if they do not know their status. Most affected counties, we have Homa Bay, Siaya, Kisumu, Migori, Kisii, Turkana, and Mombasa. Is there a reason why those areas have high prevalence? Well, that's something else that we may check as we continue with the discussion. So that is what we have for you. But remember, you're welcome to participate and weigh in on this conversation, and you can do that via Twitter. The Twitter handle is @KTN News or @Michael G. Gitonga. The hashtag we're running is Morning Express KTN. So let me start with you, Betty. Looking at those figures and the fact that HIV and AIDS has been something that has been talked about for many, many years, the prevalence still seems quite high. Why is that?
Well, the prevalence nationally has actually gone down due to a lot of efforts that has been done at national level and county levels. But you're correct to say that the prevalence rates in some counties among certain populations is still high. And it's for a variety of reasons. If you look at the case of young people, while we say that HIV has been with us in Kenya for over 30 years, you're talking about young people who have not known a life outside of HIV. The moment they were born, they were hearing about HIV. But the question begs, are they hearing consistent information? Are they hearing information packaged in a way that makes sense to them as young people? Is the information responsive to their needs as adolescents, their needs as young people insofar as their sexual reproductive health and rights are concerned? And is the information packaged in such a way that it also points towards services that should be so comprehensive enough to enable them to keep themselves safe, knowing about HIV is just one piece of the component, but taking deliberate action as a young person, as an individual, to keep yourself safe is quite another. We've just seen some of the statistics shown on your screen that suggest that women and girls are more infected than boys and men. And there's a variety of reasons why that happens, and except those are also tackled, then we are going to continue seeing a sustained high rate of AIDS-related deaths among young people and an ever-increasing proportion of new infections among them. Just to highlight a few, especially among girls and women, you're seeing that the Kenya AIDS Indicator Survey 2014 stated that the average age of the first sexual debut is 15 years old. As in 15 years old is the mean age when a boy or girl, gets into a sexual act for the first time in their life. But for girls, it comes even lower to around 12. That's a problem right there. We need to ask ourselves, who are they having sex with, and at that age, and why? What is it that would drive a young woman to do that? The other issues are around the gender-based violence that hits girls and women pretty bad. 33% of girls by the time they're 18 years actually report, a forced sex. Then there are also other harmful cultural practices that again predisposes women and girls to higher vulnerabilities towards HIV infections compared to men. But overall, I think all of us as policymakers, as programmers, need to make every effort to put the young people, both boys and girls, men and women, on the forefront insofar as fighting this epidemic is concerned.
All right, let me come to you, Rose, and you're one who is dealing with the younger people, and we've seen that the prevalence is higher on the youth, despite the fact that in this day and age, we're in a day of information and technology. So really, we cannot say that it's information they don't have, but the behavioral change doesn't seem to be at par with where it should be. What do you think is a cause for that?
Okay, young people are very dynamic. They have got every information that they need, knowing that this is a millennial times, and also technology is high, so they can also Google, they can also get information from anywhere, social media, but the way they use this information is the question. Whatever drives them to get the information is another question, because you don't know when this child is getting that information, it has no control. It is all over in the net. And the young people are getting more infected daily, because we have seen that 51% of young people are, it's increasing. And also it was noted in the Daily Nations last year, 2015, that HIV was the main cause of morbidity and disability among young people. And the question is what you're asking. What is the main cause? Number one, they don't visit health facilities because they fear the judgment. They fear being judged by the people in the health facilities. There are also the wrong assumptions of HIV and AIDS, that it is immoral. So this young person feels like, if I go for testing, if I visit that HTC counselor, he will start asking me, when is the last time you end sex? And probably this person does not even know what is it about sex. Again, the main causes of HIV and AIDS is peer influence, alcohol, drugs, substance use. We see that they have got so much influence, they have gotten into it so much, like nowadays, alcohol and drug abuse is the next national disaster.
All right, let me come to you, Jane. You're a peer counselor. What do the young people, a young peer counselor, what do young people tell you when they come to find out, first of all, their status, and what's their frame of mind when they're coming?
Most of them are afraid. One, because
afraid that they may be HIV positive, or afraid that if they do, what society will think about them?
Yeah, they are afraid of both. Because when they come to the facility, they're afraid of the healthcare workers. They wonder how they'll take them, because we are lacking youth-friendly services in our country. So if this young person comes and turns positive, he's worried, how is he going to acts back in the society, how are they going to accept him? Because out in the society, they don't have the facts about HIV and AIDS. They don't have the full information, and then the information they have is not the correct information. They still believe in the myths that were used long time ago.
Even the young still believe in those myths? What are some of those myths?
Like HIV is a killer disease. HIV are for the prostitutes. So if a young person was born positive and has come to identify her status at my age, they'll obviously think she was a prostitute and she'll be judged. Yeah, she'll be judged wrongly.
Okay. Eva, what information do we need to get out there? Because like I mentioned earlier, in this day and age we're living in, Google is your friend. You can find information. If these myths are still believed, despite the fact that there's so much information on HIV and AIDS, where are we going wrong, and what information do we need to get out there?
Okay. For young people, we need to get the information from the health facilities to know about prevention and to know how to negotiate about safe sex. That's by using of condoms and getting to know where the peer educators are. They can as well direct you and give you the right information. And coming to the myths, when you visit a health facility, you will be told on the safe use of condoms, how to negotiate of sex. In case of sex violence, you can as well report, and that's when you can get to be helped.
Okay. Betty, one of the things that possibly may be a challenge for the youth is where to get the information, and because the internet is not interactive, and they say charity begins at home. But then again, looking at our African setup and culture, talking about sex and sexual activity is taboo.
Exactly.
So it's not something that we are likely to have come from the home front. Where are the youth supposed to go and get this candid, honest, accurate information?
You point out one of the greatest challenges of all times insofar as keeping our young people informed in a consistent manner, insofar as their broader reproductive health is concerned. And HIV infection or epidemic is just one of those things that can happen to a person within that particular context. I think we cannot run away from the fact that as parents, as caregivers, we need to put ourselves in the place where we are the first line people to provide correct information about broader reproductive health issues to our children. Remember, an act of sex can not only result in a HIV infection, it can also, for the case of girls, result in an unintended pregnancies, and then that also has its own line of vulnerabilities there. And for both of them, it can also result in being infected with other sexually transmitted infections. So for me, I think for young people, there are trusted sites that they can go to. They need to have the confidence to visit their closest health facilities there. The Ministry of Health at national level, and I can say this for certain, at county level, giving Nairobi County as an example. There is now a robust, youth-friendly health services that is provided from dispensary level all the way up to the level 5 type of facility. So feel free to go there. You're going to meet a young person like you who's going to receive you, who's going to guide you, who's going to navigate with you all the places that you need to go to and ask all manner of questions there. If that person cannot answer you concretely, then that young person placed in the health facility is going to show you where to go so that you get the right information insofar as your reproductive health is concerned, and specifically give you information around HIV. For young people, I think my message would be the first step is to get the confidence to get tested. If you get past that barrier, all the other processes insofar as management, and prevention of HIV will more or less go smoothly. Even for us as adults, get yourself to get tested is a challenge. So you can imagine for a 13-year-old, for a 15-year-old, So I think that this needs to be a partnership of everyone. Let parents get out of their cultural barriers to speak to your child, because if you don't, somebody somewhere is going to do it, and you just don't know. It might just be the wrong person providing the wrong information to take advantage of your young girl or of your young boy.
All right, let me come to you, Jane. And the day and age we are living in, there is also the moral question and conversation. And I'd like you to advise possibly parents, because this is it's a joint effort for the young to be living and getting infected by HIV and AIDS. It is something that maybe needs to be dealt with even at the home. But the moral conversation is prevention. And prevention automatically comes in with the issue of talking about maybe the use of condoms. But again, looking at it from the parents' perspective, it's almost like telling the children, okay, fine, we're giving you permission to go ahead and, be promiscuous. What advice do you give to parents? Because there's that debate. If you don't give them that advice or arm them with the condoms, they're going to get infected. If you give them, you're giving them a green light and saying, okay, as a parent, I agree that fine, you can indulge.
Okay, concerning parents, we have been in communities. And in fact, the main challenge and the main reason why our message is not being receptive to young people is because of the background, the family background. Because most of these children, when you speak to them, they tell you, my dad, no. My dad, my mom, no. Who can you disclose in case of anything? Not my father, not my mother. And then you are left wondering why. There is a gap. And to us parents outside there, this is my message, that we should get closer to our children. We should start doing sex education right at our houses. Before this child gets out of the house, he or she should know what is sex from the parent, what is sexual intercourse from the mother, because it is very important, because children trust their parents. And if they don't get this right information from their parents, chances are they are going to be misled, either by friends or by people whom they will meet, especially their peer friends. And my message to parents is this, that we should be the role models to our children, and we should also practice what we preach. If I tell my child that he or she should abstain from sex, I should also give a story, and also I should also give a story from where I'm coming from and where I am going from to. Again, if I'm not that good role model that I would like my child to become, I should connect this child to people who have morals, who will teach my child the right way. Like churches, children go to churches. Some parents don't allow their children to go to churches. Some parents will come, they are drunk themselves. There is this case that I asked a child, 9 years old, when was your first time you took alcohol? And this child told me, in our own house. Where did it come from? My father came with it, he got so drunk, he left it on the table. So in the morning, the child finds a drink and he takes, only to realize that it was alcohol.
Okay.
So you see?
All right, Eva, in terms of getting this information out there, what's the best medium to do that? How do we communicate? Because evidently there's a disconnect between generations, and as a result, we are suffering the results of that, the effects of that disconnect.
Okay, the disconnect happens that these children are taught about HIV when they are right in class 4. And there is a gap between class 4 until they reach the university. That's when they'll be taught a common unit on HIV. So to reach out on these children, the government, the private sectors should come together and plan on how they are going to organize this health education to children, be it in the community, in schools, in churches, wherever they will be found. Even during sports, they can be advocated to be taught on this HIV mode of transmission, how to prevent and how to control HIV.
Okay, Rose, stigma is still a problem. How do we overcome it? It's been years since we started talking about HIV and AIDS, and one of the biggest hindrances to, first of all, getting good care, to going to be tested, is stigma. Just like you'd mentioned earlier, they're afraid to come and say, what the judgment, you talked about it as judgment. People will judge me on how I live my life.
Sure. Okay, maybe first I should congratulate myself and celebrate myself this day of World AIDS Day, being a champion of living positive for the last 22 years. And it's because I've accepted myself and I've learned to overcome stigma. That's why I'm where I am. But there's that one child or that one youth out there who doesn't know anything to do with HIV, how to handle herself, and she goes out, she's stigmatized, she's discriminated, maybe in school, in the community, in their own home, because in the facility level you find a young youth, he or she has come and has been tested for the first time, turns positive, and the first question is, what am I going to tell my parents? She was raised well, she has become positive when she's a young person. She has that big question. Because of that stigma that is back in the community, the parents are going to push them away. Maybe what I think is we should create more empowerment to the parents and also to the community level. And I would also urge the Ministry of Education to have HIV and AIDS as a subject or as a topic, a compulsory topic from primary level to high school level until they get to the tertiary level.
Okay, how have you overcome the stigma? Because people talk, people say things. How have you managed to overcome that?
I overcame it after being in terms with myself, because it starts with me myself. Stigma starts from myself. If I stigmatize myself, I don't expect someone else who will come to tell me this and this is not what is right. Obviously, I'll be overwhelmed because of those words that they'll tell me. But if I accept myself fully, I'll not listen to what they say. I'll not give them time to tell me what is not good and what is bad. And I'll be free to talk out about my HIV status, and that is what we're empowering any other young person out there who is positive and the negative ones, to accept those who are positive so that they can be able to live a positive life. And when they are accepted and themselves accept themselves, they'll be able even to reduce transmission to the negative people. Because one, if I'm not able to disclose to my partner, I'll end up infecting him. And more infections will come day in, day out. So that's why we are saying empowerment, and this stigma and discrimination should end. At this level, we are not in those ages that were there in our mother's time.
There are so many myths, so those the myths still seem to be taking the better of the day. Now, Betty, HIV and AIDS is not just about the youth. We also have another category that we looked at there in the statistics that shows us married couples and people cohabiting or people in a relationship are also quite high numbers. Your advice to them and the importance of being tested, because that's the other thing. Exactly. There are many who possibly would rather live by not knowing, and they say what you don't know doesn't hurt you.
Yeah. I think the institution of marriage is under attack insofar as the HIV epidemic is concerned. And that was rather startling, because you'd expect that within the institution of marriage, then fidelity to each other, reigns supreme. However, I think it gets back to one, getting consistent information, and you will be surprised how many adults also are just as confused, as young people, insofar as what really is this and how do I relate with it, and what are my vulnerabilities as an individual. The minute you're sexually active, you are at risk. That's just bottom line. And you can become familiar with someone just by virtue of dating them and getting into a cohabitation or a marriage relationship with them. And then you decide that, no, HIV testing, no, that's not our thing. We've already decided we are living together.
We are faithful to
each other. We are faithful to each other.
Or you hope you are.
Or you hope you are. And let's raise a family and let's just be. That is why we are seeing so many shockers within the family setup when one partner, finds out that he or she, is HIV positive, and then the blame game, starts coming in-laws start coming in, and that's a marriage that, if not handled the right way, is headed to the rocks. I think my message, to everybody is, whether you're married or not, get to know your own HIV status and assess your own risk. Get at least minimum to be tested once a year tell yourself that every year on the 10th of January, you know, I'll be going for a
That's
HIV.
my HIV testing day.
Exactly. Like the way you remember your birthday, remember your HIV testing day. And if you're in a marriage, I mean, it would be very beautiful if both of you, you know, can just go together to get tested, because you cannot handle HIV if you don't start with the testing. That's where it all starts. So that in the event that either of you or both of you, you know, turn out to be HIV positive, then you give yourselves the opportunity to get into treatment, care and support as fast as possible, so that you just live, you know, a normal, productive life just like anyone else. Because if you don't, the viral load is going to increase. The rate at which you are going to be infecting and reinfecting each other and all these other people who are in your sexual network is going to, you know, reign supreme, and you're going to progress very, very fast from just infection stage to the AIDS stage. And then, you know, we are going to see deaths that, in my view, are completely unnecessary in this day and age.
All right, Jane, you deal a lot with the youth. And what is your advice to those who feel possibly, of course, abstinence would be the best medicine in one case or the other, but there are those who, for one reason or the other, that's not an option. What's your advice to them?
Okay, to use consistent use of condom and the correct use of condom, because some will just go out there, and we are in a generation where abstinence is a no-talk, especially to the youths and to the teens and even
but
to these young people.
Do we still advise on abstinence, despite the
Yes.
fact that it's not, you know, that popular as it used to be?
Yes, for those who can abstain, let them abstain. And for those who can't, let them use condom. Yeah, and maybe to the parents, let us show this good role model to the children, because we sometimes have such cases where parents will advise children to go on family planning or their contraceptives, but they're not telling them there is HIV and there is STIs. You'll protect your child from pregnancy, which will be seen after some few months, but HIV will come in your body, and the STIs will also affect your body. They are not telling them the right way. Let them not give them only contraceptives, but tell them everything. Let's call a spade a spade.
All right, closing comments. Let's start right from the end. They're coming this way, maybe on your closing comments and advice as World AIDS Day is today.
Yes, and 2017 campaign is, we are ending isolation, we are ending stigma, and we are also ending HIV new infections. So that is our battle for 2017. And I'm happy. I'm one of the people who are fighting HIV vigorously through the young people, because I love the young people. My heart is young. It goes for the young people. And I wish all the young people all the best. And today being the World AIDS Day, my prayer is that each and every one of us will make
Lives
it a
healthy.
birthday.
All right, closing comments, please, very briefly.
Okay, today being World AIDS Day, I will encourage youths, because I'm also a youth. I will encourage youths today, tujitokeze, tujijue, na tujipange, so that we can live long. Let no one be discriminated, no stigma, no new infections, and let's end HIV-related deaths.
All right, closing comments.
Okay, I'll urge everyone out there to come out, today being the World AIDS Day. Tokea, utestiwe, kutestiwa ndo kujijua na unakuwa sure.
I am.
Well, to especially the young people, you know, hearing our voice today, get the courage, get tested, because that's the first step in knowing your status and doing something about it. See, everyone has a HIV status, so get to know what yours is. Whether it is positive or it is negative, it does not mean that is the end of life, but take that step to get tested today and live your life. We need you tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much, Betty Adera, Jane Wanjiro, Eva Lichuma, Rose Mweni for joining us this morning as we commemorate World AIDS Day. Well, from Morning Express, this is where we wind up the week, and thank you so much for staying with us this week from us on Morning Express, and a very committed and dedicated team that works behind the scenes to ensure that Morning Express comes to you every weekday from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. We say thank you. Wish you a fantastic weekend. Happy New Month. Do take care of yourselves and each other.